All right, I have 6 o'clock. So at 6 o'clock, I call this meeting of Saginaw City Council to order. Please rise for the pledges. I pledge allegiance. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you. Please be seated. Item number 2 is the invocation. For that, our friend, Reverend Dennis Hudson. Welcome, sir.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the privilege. Let's pray together. Father, we come this evening. First of all, Lord, we want to say thank you that we have a quiet city. Lord, we know that in a lot of the places there's been a lot of stress and trials, and we ask, Father, that you would intervene and bring peace. Lord, we recognize that we don't handle this world and this life very well sometimes. We ask that you would pour out your Spirit, calm hearts, calm minds. Help us to deal with tragedy in a much better way. We also ask, Father, that you would continue to bless this city. We have peace for a good reason. We have good leadership, and we thank you for that. We have peace because the people care for one another. We thank you for that. We have peace, Father, because you're among us, and we especially thank you for that. So this evening, as these leaders convene to do business, we thank you that they are going to do a good job. We thank you that you're going to lead them and guide them, and we thank you that this city will continue to move forward. And we praise you that you allow us to ask you and invite you to intervene with us, to help us, to guide us, and that, Father, you respond. You're great and awesome God. For these things we praise you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Reverend. Appreciate it. Thanks for coming out. Next item is audience participation. That's covered on the screen. Also, if there is any item you wish to speak for, please see the city secretary for a card, or if it's a public hearing, you can approach when I ask. Also, I want to say welcome to the folks watching online. Let us know how you can see and hear how the audio is. I hope you can hear me through this mask. I think you can. But welcome. Thanks for coming out. Next item, item number 4 is the consent agenda. A is action regarding minutes of May 19th. B is action regarding acceptance of utility easement for Lot 1, Block 1, Saginaw Skilled Nursing Addition. C is action regarding lease agreement for property 301 South Saginaw Boulevard. D is action regarding Metropolitan Area EMS Authority restated and amended interlocal agreement. E is action regarding Metropolitan Area EMS Authority revised EMS ordinance. F, action regarding resolution 2020-14 authorizing creation of an employee benefit trust and designating trustees. Any questions or comments on the consent agenda? If not, I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to pass the consent agenda as approved.
Thank you, ma'am. Charlie, second. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed? Let the record reflect we do have a quorum. We have a full house this evening, so we are blessed to have all folks in attendance. Item number 5, presentation of a service pin. Now, this is a big one here. Very important one. So, we don't do this very often for service pins because it's every 5 years. So, I have the honor to present a pin to Mr. Patrick Farr for 5 years of service to the city of Saginaw. Personally, I cannot believe it's been 5 years. It's been a long time, but congratulations, sir. Well done. I have a lovely pin to present you. Normally we would hug and kiss and take a good picture, but I will present it to you, and you can take a picture with Janice. I'll say thank you, sir. Congratulations.
I'll take the elbow bump from you.
Thank you. For those of you don't know, nobody works harder than Patrick. Nobody prepares more. Patrick puts a lot of work into his city. He takes it very seriously. The citizens definitely get their money's worth with Patrick. So, sir, we appreciate it. Thank you for your time, your efforts. We really thank you.
Todd, thank you very much, and I really appreciate serving alongside everybody in here. I consider you all friends, and I appreciate everything you do for our city.
Thank you, Patrick. Well done. Before item number 6, election of a mayor pro tem. We did not do this last night because we didn't have a full house and waited. So So we had a full, complete house. So we are now. I will entertain a motion of nomination for a mayor pro tem. Cindy.
Mayor, I'd like to nominate Valerie Tankersley to serve as Mayor Pro Tem.
Second.
Second, Patrick? All right, all in favor of Valerie Tankersley? Any opposed? Congratulations, Mayor Pro Tem. Good to have you here. Item number 7, consideration action regarding Chapter 380 Economic Development and City Agreement with Bright Living Saginaw Manager LLC. For that, City Manager Dave Burns.
Mayor and Council, if you'll recall, we held a citizen summit in July of 18, a few months after I started here. Got feedback from the community about a number of things to guide our decisions as they relate to a strategic plan. One of the needs that was identified by citizens or desires to see in the community was a assisted living facility. So we took that to heart. This has been some time in the making, but happy to bring an agreement before you this evening for action. We have a party that has a contract on a piece of property very close to us on McElroy. Andy Patel, his group is called Bright Living Saginaw. Their intent is to build an assisted living facility that would include approximately 89 units, 95 beds, would have concierge-style services, which includes 24/7 professional care and a number of other amenities for residents, assisted living services. It's be located on McElroy. So the corner this is part of the old airport track that Barbara Bierling's the current owner. The corner of McElroy and Knowles recently sold. It's under development now to be a senior a nursing home facility, rehabilitative care facility. The middle piece is where this property owner has identified for an assisted living facility. And in the end, the city has purchased for a future fire station. The agreement before you requires the Bright Living Saginaw to pull a permit and plat the property for an assisted living use within 9 months of the date of execution. So they have 9 months to submit plans, do all the preliminary engineering work. In return, the incentive agreement waives building permit fees, waives platting fees, and utility tap fees. They would have to pay impact fees through Fort Worth, but we're excited to support them. I think that there's a lot of support in the community for this type of service, and look forward to a new facility soon. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Council, questions? Cindy?
I'd like to direct your attention to page 5 of this agreement, please, at the top of the page. I think we need a correction for communications, if intended for the city. If memory serves me correct, because of the Rotary Club, the address in here for the Economic Development Director is the former personal address for Laura Walcoltz. This needs to be corrected.
Sure.
I just discovered that
That's a
a
good
little
catch.
while ago.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So do we need to correct that before we sign this, or agree to this, or how does that work?
That might be a brain question.
We can approve it subject to that change, and we'll make sure that change is made. I apologize for that oversight.
Oh, not a problem. It's just
No,
the zip code caught my attention.
I appreciate you catching that, yes.
Other questions, Council?
Could we make clear who is to receive this? It will be Gabe, is that right?
I'm sorry?
Information would flow to Gabe.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
I think it goes to Keith because it says Economic Development Director.
We can designate it however
Yeah.
you all would like.
That's what I'd like to amend now. I'd like for us to agree on who
City
it
manager.
goes to, and
Sure.
I'd prefer it be the city manager,
Happy to make that
just
change.
because of the weight of the document.
Absolutely.
And under Article 4, these are the only obligations of the city, is that right? It's a waiver of fees or no cash equivalents.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it.
And Gabe, I think you mentioned before, what is our estimate of the fees, total amount, total cost?
So that's up to the applicant when they finally submit plans, based on their initial estimates. Probably construction value between $7 and $9 million. That translates with all fees and applicable development costs to at least $50,000. So it's a substantial fee waiver that they've requested.
But we're not, as Patrick, we're not giving them cash. Well, this would be just services
That's correct.
from the city, so, okay. Any other questions, council? If not, I'll entertain a motion on this item.
Mr. Mayor, I move we approve the 380 agreement as amended.
Dr. Sager? All those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed, fine. Excellent. Good work, guys.
Oh, no, just as amended. I think he's,
I've got it noted.
Okay, moving forward. Item number 8, multi-year financial plan update and budget update. For that, Finance Director Kim Quinn.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. We, as we are starting this budget process and contemplating issuing debt, it seemed like a good time to have Lewis McLean update and present to you some changes to the multi-year financial plan. So we've got him virtually, and you should have hard copies of the presentation so you can see them.
Lewis, can you hear us?
I've unmuted him, but he has to unmute himself too. And he can take over. I have his phone number.
Okay.
He's got his muted.
Oh. Hey, Lewis. Can we get that over the speaker? Or?
Yeah, we're ready to go. Go ahead.
And hopefully everyone can see my PowerPoint presentation that I'll walk through. And because we are using a little bit of a different technology here, if it's okay, I would like to go ahead and walk through my entire presentation and then ask for questions because they may have to be
These
relayed.
speakers do ambient sound throughout. He has a hard time hearing you when you even speaking through those because it directs the sound out. So if questions afterwards is the best way we've
Yeah,
done this.
that's-
no, I understand, but I do want to make sure, Mary, can you hear okay? Can you hear Lewis okay? Because I can barely hear him. Is there a way that we can get some more volume?
Yeah, hold on.
Is that better?
Hold
That's,
on. All right.
Is that better?
Yeah.
A little bit, yeah.
I'll try to speak up as much as I can without yelling. As you know, I start off most of my presentations with this statement. It still holds true, and I do for the city of Saginaw, and hopefully it's evident in everything that I present. So basically, it's we do all we can as much as we can.
It's on his side now. He's reverbing on his own side.
Hey, Lewis, I'm going to call you on the telephone here, and we're just going to put you on speakerphone on this phone real fast, all right?
Okay.
So if you're watching at home, pardon our interruption. We're having some technical difficulties, but we will get better volume.
All right. Yeah, give me 1 second. I need to reverb you. I need to turn your sound off now. Give me. Where are you? All right. You there?
Well, I hoped it would be better.
All right, go
Can you
ahead.
hear me okay?
Is that any better?
Tell them to keep talking.
Keep talking, Lewis, so we can tell.
I'm going to take it off my speakerphone.
That's better.
How does that sound?
It sounds fine to me, but I'm not the important one here, so can anybody hear him? Is that all right?
That's better.
You're the most important one in the room to make this communication happen.
Go ahead, Lewis.
Okay, I'm hearing an echo. Let me.
Yeah, you're going to have to kill your. You're going to.
I don't know why, but I'm hearing the song Major Tom in the back of my head right now.
Okay. Let me ask you, is that better?
Yeah, you need to turn you need to mute us now, the same way I muted you to stop the audio feedback.
Oh.
We
Okay,
practiced
now
this. I
show-
promise we practiced this.
It's okay.
It seemed like it, but we practiced at least twice.
I show to be muted on my audio. Let me see what I can do here.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, that's good.
Here's what we're going to address tonight is really some of the changes since the last time I spoke to you. And in this case, addressing the questions, is the tax base growth on track with what was presented? You may recall the laminated sheet that I handed out that was sort of embraced as the multi-year plan. Now, Greg, is the sound coming through okay?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm hearing a big echo, but that's okay. I can handle that. And then I want to address, has the debt capacity changed? And then third, have the general fund revenues changed? And I'll be addressing both the property taxes, the sales taxes, and I really want to address the other revenues because those are two big ones. And then I'll have some conclusions and recommendations. If we were to compare to the financial plan and look at how the fiscal 20 tax base turned out, we were using $2.219 billion in the financial plan, and as it turned out, it's $2.110 billion, a decrease, and then if we look forward to 2021, we included $2.315 billion, and the preliminary tax roll that Kim recently received from the Heron Appraisal District is showing $2.255 billion. Now, I'll point out a couple things. Almost always, the difference between the preliminary roll and the final roll is that the final roll that you get on July 25th, the certified roll, tends to be slightly higher. But that did not happen in for fiscal 20. It was actually lower, which is a fairly rare situation. So right now we have in hand a preliminary roll from TAD for $2.255 billion. Could be a little bit more. It actually could be a little bit less, but that's the information we go with right now. As far as property tax revenues for the general fund goes, in our what we had in our plan was $5,987,000, 863 for fiscal 20. Now, fiscal 20 is the year that we're in. And we had $2.6 million for fiscal 21. So what those slightly lower tax base revenues, our tax base translates into is general fund property tax revenues of $5.7 million for 2021 and $6.13 million. It is a decrease, but it is not sufficient to change anything of significance in our multi-year financial plan. And one of the reasons is on the expenditure side, we tend to budget a little bit conservatively. So at this point, as far as the tax base and the tax base revenues for the general fund, it's slightly under, but there's nothing that I see that is alarming or alters anything of significance. However, we have an interesting sales tax situation, and what I want to show you on a graph in a second is that they were conservatively budgeted for $5,070,000 in fiscal 20, but and actually if you looked on a 12-month average, sales tax checks on a month-to-month basis are so up and down. It's hard to see a trend looking at the monthly checks alone, but if you look at that on a 12-month basis, you can learn a lot more. So what was happening is through April, if you looked at a rolling 12-month basis, we were doing quite well at $5.8 million. In other words, things were shaping up for you to have better sales tax collections than was in the budget. But then something happened called the COVID-19 recession. Some call it likely to be a depression. So what I did is I developed a scenario that in essence said, we know what the Great Recession looked like, and is our expectation that the COVID recession is going to be worse, and is it going to be longer or shorter? And for the most part, in talking to as many people as I can, there is generally an expectation that as far as how deep this could be, it could be about 1.5 times as deep. Well, let me show you this as a picture, and I'll just highlight a few things. This is your rolling 12-month sales taxes, actually since the year 2000, April of 2000. And as you will note, just before the Great Recession, the city had collected $4.6 million. And then you dropped significantly, all the way down as low as $3.8 million before you started to recover. However, it was from January 2009, it took all the way to February of 2014 for you to get back to where you had dropped off. So, and on a rolling 12-month basis, your percentage decrease dropped actually very significantly. That's one of the deeper cuts that I've seen comparing all my 20 different clients. So what happened is these are real numbers, and we thought that the Great Recession was going to be the worst we'd ever see, and everything else would be compared to that. So if we made the assumption that if you drop not 16%, but about 1.5 times to 25%, in that you recovered actually in less time. This was such a long recovery. I've got slightly faster recovery, but I basically use a formula to show a scenario where you would not get back up to $5.8 million until the end of 24. Now, it is a scenario. It is not necessarily a prediction. I'm just saying, in light of this depth and width, if we had this kind of a scenario, you could drop down to $4,098,000 at the bottom of this recession, and it take quite a few months before we would get back to break even, and hopefully would then continue to grow. Now, the reason I use the terminology I'm using here is because some people are expecting that not only would this be bad and it'd take a long time to recover, but that you would maybe not recover up to more than 90%, say, and it take even more years for you to get back to a growing level here. So this is a picture, if you will. If you were to read everything possible in terms of expectations, you would hear people talking about a U-shape or a V-shape or a swoosh or a Nike swoosh, if you will. And so it is a scenario. But I take this scenario and I say, what would happen in terms of our dollars? And this is where I come back and I said, this could be the part that makes your general fund revenue base really suffer. And so technically, if that curve came true, you could end up with almost $1 million that you're short by the end of fiscal 21. We hope that wouldn't happen. I'm just trying to give you an idea of the only threat that I see on the general fund side has to do with sales tax. Now, I'm going to go forward and then say, now looking at the property tax that funds your debt service, your financial advisors have provided you, and I took from their numbers a current debt service level if you sold no more debt, and then the increment if you sold the bonds that are under consideration right now. But I also looked at the additional debt capacity and sort of took it a step further, if you will. And my conclusion is that on the INS rate, keeping it at this 1.773, that you should be in good shape it's only a slightly different level, actually, than I showed you in the multi-year financial plan last year. But let me show this to you as a picture. And basically, the blue bars is your existing debt service if you sold no additional bonds. And of course, it drops off significantly with just a slight need to draw down from your INS fund balance for the next 3 years. Collectively, that is not a large amount, and you've got a sufficient fund balance in your debt service fund to cover that. The yellow ties exactly to the debt service schedules that your bond advisors have provided you. And then, assuming a tax base growth that is taken directly from that plan that I eliminated and showed you last year, this basically says you could, if you kept the tax base, the tax rate for debt service the same, then you could fund this much more debt, which translates into about another $34 million above the debt service that you're looking at now. And as you notice, that doesn't really start until 2024. So we've got a couple more years. We'll see if that tax base growth comes into fruition, which I would expect it to. So, to highlight the unknowns and the concerns, it has to do with this COVID recession. However, it looks like your property tax base was so far a very impressive 6.9%. Now, 4.3% of that is due to new growth, and only 2.55% is related to revaluations. That's a good thing because basically you're not penalized for the new growth, you are for revaluations, and this is probably going to be safely below the new caps that are being placed on cities. Again, sales tax losses is the biggest concern, but I basically have concluded that your scenario, our scenario we put together last year, we actually, without knowing COVID was at our threshold, we actually made this comment, and we had this discussion that if you were to get into a situation where your bond interest got to be very low, and if low construction costs were to come about, then if that was due to a recession, instead of the tendency to then say in a recession, oh, let's stop, let's pull back, let's defer, let's delay, but basically we said what you should be doing is selling all the bonds you can and building all the projects you can with that low construction cost. So what happened, or has happened now, is we've got those, we've got the low debt, the low interest cost is here. You proved that last week with some, just an incredibly low bond interest rate on some bonds that you issued. And the low construction cost is expected because there are going to be a lot of projects pulled back and delayed. So my recommendation is consistent with the plan that you embraced last year to keep going forward. That time is here. I think it should be affordable. And then basically, we're just going to have to see what happens with the this COVID recession. We don't know any more than I've talked to you about tonight. And then basically, that's my take on the update for the multi-year financial plan. And I will pause now and say that's the end of my prepared comments, and ask if you have if you've got any questions or things that I could address.
Greg, how can we do questions? How can we best get questions to Lewis so he can hear them?
Did you hear that at all, Lewis?
Can you hear me?
I couldn't understand it.
Okay. Can you hear me now, Lewis? Is that any better?
Yeah, I can hear it. It's kind of an echo chamber, so I take a shot at it, and I'll try.
All right.
Yeah, I can just repeat the question to him.
Yeah, can you repeat, or can you text some questions, or what do you think?
Yeah,
I
can do that.
Let's start to my left. Questions? Ms. Copeland?
I'm sorry?
1 second, Lewis.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Sandy, well, you got a question?
Yeah, just leave it on.
Leave it on,
I'll
well,
relay it to him.
Yeah, just talk to Greg.
I was wondering how the riots and protests are going to affect this over COVID.
Lewis, she's wanting to know how the riots are going to affect things.
Good question. It's going to cause, right now, it's actually causing some concern. There are articles I've read just this week where the bond rating agencies, for instance, and some city governments are going, oh, great, this is just what we needed. I think it depends on how long it goes. It's already, I think it's going to be longer than it would have been in the past, just because it's a very serious situation. But in terms of destroying the value of your tax base, that's not likely to happen. So I don't, something that we seriously have to watch, and at this point, every day, the intensity is increasing. So we've sort of got we have a triple whammy. We've got the COVID, now followed by riots, and then, of all things, we have a potentially big hurricane in the Gulf, which wouldn't affect us up here necessarily, but if you live on the coast, it's like, can you just have one more big, gigantic disaster happen all at one time? And now, I don't think it's going to have a long-term effect.
Did you find your question, Mary?
No, just tell it to me. I'll get it to him.
I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Under key assumptions, where the actual numbers have been lower than what we expected, and then in July, if they are even lower.
Lewis, she's wanting to know about the key numbers and what was expected, and that they're even lower in July.
Then how much lower could they be without causing us a problem?
How much lower could they get without causing us a problem?
Well, at this point, the appraisal district, in essence, they take anything that has been challenged, and they have included in the number they've given us the part that is not being challenged. In other words, if everybody who has protested, if the appraisal district were to give in and let them have what they are arguing is the number it should be, the effect would be zero, because the appraisal district has taken out the contested number, the contested increment. So if someone says, you've got $200,000 on my house, I think it's worth $180,000. The $180,000 is in the preliminary roll, but the $20,000 is not. So that's why it's generally an increase, because this assuming it's sort of a compromise between 180 and 200,000, we'll get the increment. And that's why I said it's very rare for it to be less than. Now remember that the property values are as of January 1st, 2020. Before COVID, and that's just the way our tax system works. Now a bigger concern would be if in fact houses are devalued or there's bankruptcies that would affect our January 1st, 2021 roll, would be a more concern. But we've not taken an aggressive tax base growth past the year where we have these preliminary numbers. So I'm not concerned. I can't imagine it would be a deep reduction at all.
I just want to add to that. We'll get another estimated certified value at the end of June, and then the final certified, well, not final, but the certified value that we use for our TNT calculations, July 25th. We may get it a day or two earlier because that's a weekend.
Is that Kim responding?
Yes, sir. She's talking for a minute.
Okay.
So the other thing to note is that with all of what's happened, there's a 15-day delay. So normally, protests would need to be filed before the middle of May, and they've changed it. This year it was June 1st. Normally May is our lowest estimate. It could be lower in June this year because there were still protests going on through the end of the month. We just won't know until we get those values. It's hard to determine. I was in a meeting last week with Tarrant Appraisal District, and I can tell you that protests in general are down, I guess because people aren't as inclined to do it online. They're used to going in, and they didn't have that option this year. But it's really just hard to know at this point. We don't know. It could go lower, though I'm not going to tell you that it can't. As we're contemplating the debt issue, and next week, the next council meeting, our financial advisors will be here. We have certain timings that we have to follow, so we'll have to advertise in June. We can take the same tack that we do for tax rates. You advertise at your highest rate, and you can go down from there, but you can't go up. So if you say you want to issue $8.5 million, and then you change and you want to go up to 23, you would have to start the whole clock over and start advertising, and day one would start again. You need to advertise 45 days before we issue. So we can advertise at the higher rate and always go down if values come in lower than we anticipate.
Mary, anything else? Cindy, anything else?
Yeah, I have another question.
Go ahead.
Based on the appraisals, I've been hearing a lot of news stories talking about people flocking out of the urban housing and looking for suburban housing. Is there a possibility that our house appraisals, our sales could go up because of this? That would probably be next year.
It's hard to predict. I mean, anything is possible. possible. I will say that, as Lewis explained, I would say 9 out of 10 years are, and Mr. Farr has brought this point up many times during budget discussions, the value that we use to base our tax rate calculation on is usually lower than what the valuation ends up being. That's because TAD uses 30%. They estimate conservatively that you will lose 30% of the value under protest. And normally it's not that high. But this year we had 2 substantial cases that were still before the ARB, Appraisal Review Board, and we lost more than the 30%. And then there was another one that was an incomplete property that that ended up with an exemption that wasn't accounted for in the preliminary certified value.
Is there anything else? Mr. Tucker? Nothing? Mayor Pro Tem? Mr. Farr?
Yeah, I just want to make a couple of clarifications. And I'm not sure how best to approach this. I think I can keep it pretty simple. Can we get Lewis to confirm that the fiscal year 2020 revenue, this is general fund revenue, was 5,987,863, 5,987,863.
You're on the key assumptions page, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know if you could hear.
General fund revenues,
Yes, sir. For fiscal year 2020, general fund revenue.
now you're talking about on the plan?
Yes, sir. That was the forecast revenue. Fiscal year 2020. It's the 5th line from the bottom, 2nd column from right.
$5,987,863.
Yes, sir. And that is fiscal year 2020. Now, if you would, can you go up that column to the tax base in billions? And what does that number read on your plan that you're looking at?
2,126.
Yes, sir. That is for fiscal year 2020. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. When I go to your key assumptions, you're showing that our plan was forecasting 2.219. I don't think that it's accurately reflecting the downturn. The basis of forecast that you show on the key assumptions page is about $100 million higher. What looks like has happened is that you're using the 2021 forecast number for fiscal year 2020.
You are exactly right.
So what's happening here is these downturn forecasts, speaking to Mary's comment a minute ago, are not quite as drastic as what it shows on this. So in fact, next year in 2021, where it's showing that we're forecasting a tax base of $2.3 billion, actually our plan says that our 2021 is 2.219, which is lower than what the early TAD rolls are showing. So we're actually going to see an increase, not a decrease. So I think what might have happened is he was looking at the plan, he was probably using this column as the basis 2020, and he's looking into 2022 for the basis of the 2021 year on his slide. So I just want to make sure, because this was pretty drastic change from what Lewis and I had talked about last week when we were going through these numbers, and it concerned me because I didn't see us having a $100 million hit in one tax year. So it doesn't look like we're having the $100 million hit, which my heart is back to normal rate after clarifying that. So that's the only comment that I had on the presentation. I think I do want to just disclose to the council that Lewis and I had a very good discussion about the tax rate, what is looking like either a U or a V shape. Anybody's guess sitting here on this dais as to what's going to happen. You pick it. We don't know what's going to happen. And I think in looking at our fund balances and looking what we can do to not increase tax revenues beyond what we have planned. Now, when I'm saying that with a lot of fervor here, if we've told this group of folks to stick to a plan for the next 10 years, we need to do our very best to stick to that plan. But if we want to increase revenues beyond what we're showing here, I think we really got to look at fund balance for that. I really don't want to go to the taxpayers. I'm just telling you, and this is what I've expressed to Gabe, I've expressed it to Lewis in our conversations. We may not see as deep a 25% dip, what we're showing on this slide in April. We may not see it. If we do see it, it's going to be a lot more scary than what I'm sitting here thinking. But if we don't see it, I think we really need to be looking at fund balance and not increasing our revenue beyond what we've planned. That said, we're also going to be making decisions on bonds. I know that's something that's really fresh on our minds, and that's going to have an effect over what our bond rate is. And what I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, Lewis, I don't know if you can hear me, but correct me if I'm wrong, setting at our 1.773 rate today, based on our tax-based forecasts, we would be able to continue to support not only the $8 million that we've talked about in terms of payback in issuing certificates of obligations, but also potentially, if the market supports it, meaning we have extremely low construction costs and extremely low money cost in bond, that we 7 decide to pull the trigger on the fire station. I mean, that's going to be another $14 million. I mean, that's going to total us somewhere in the neighborhood of $22 to $23 million. And I just want to make certain that 1.773, that rate applied to what our forecast models are for the next 2 years, 2 fiscal years, it will support that kind of bond issuance. I just want to hear that response.
Yes, and Councilman Farr, what you pointed out is a bona fide gotcha. When I put the PowerPoint together, I apparently lifted from the wrong column, and I will correct that. It doesn't change the story in terms of financing capability, but I will correct that, and you're exactly right.
And might I add, with the use of debt service fund balance for 2 years and maybe a little bit that 3rd year.
But using fund balance,
yes,
not increasing the rate against.
That's right, but the tax rate itself would not support that much based on these assumptions.
Yeah, that was at the conclusion of my call with Lewis. That's where we left off. I just wanted to confirm that, and I wanted to hear that and have the council hear that all at the same time. Thank you very much, Kim. Appreciate it.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah,
just a couple questions, and I'll give credit to Lewis. So a couple of my friends and classmates, I think you've heard one of them speak, Chad Janacek with ZagTax. So we subscribe to their service. They took a class from Lewis and then created a business on their own. And they were both in city management, and then they've hopped out completely on their own. So
don't get any ideas.
You know, one of these days, I have 15 or 20 kids that I need to keep up with. But one thing I want to note, and also for folks listening at home, is that we have been very cautious in preparing these estimates, very conservative. But there's a unique, when you drill into the sales tax data, cities like ours, comparatively, are with the sales tax impact, are faring better. I would call it the Amazon effect. So all of the Amazon trucks that you see around the city, all of the online sales, through a Supreme Court decision last year, several months ago, all those sales taxes are staying in the city where products are delivered, which is a tremendous benefit to cities like ours. Now, some of our neighbors, like Hearst, for example, where you have a brick and mortar mall, they're feeling a tremendous amount of pain financially, and will look at severe corrective measures to live within their means. But, thankfully, last month we were down 3.5%. Comparatively, Fort Worth was down 6.5%. So our June collections reflect April. That reflects completely shelter in place. So we're confident and hopeful that sales tax this month is as bad as it gets, and then we look at a slow recovery. But, as Lewis has mentioned and Kim's mentioned, we've prepared for the worst scenario.
I thought you were going to call it the Mr. Froze effect. That's my preferred.
No doubt about that. My goodness.
The Mayor Pro Tem, correspond with her on the weekend. She gives me she'll get complaints about traffic, and I texted her because I hadn't heard from her this past weekend. I said, have you got any traffic complaints? She said no, but I think bars opened up on the Friday night proceedings, so maybe our Mr. Froze boom is calmed down, but
let's hope not. All right, Mr. Beasley, do you have any questions? Okay, thank you, sir. Lewis answered one of my questions. The other question was if Lewis could just talk a little bit about revaluations. That's one thing I had not thought about. Can he just talk about that and how that would work?
Did you get that, Lewis, about reevaluations?
No, I'm
All right.
I'm sorry.
The mayor's asking me if you could talk a little bit about the reevaluations.
Well, we only know the number that they separated. We don't know where that was. Actually, the appraisal district does provide us with the details of the tax roll. I don't know that they provided those from the preliminary, but I can check. If you want to know, was that commercial or was that residential? I don't know that number right now, and I don't know that they may have provided it in the preliminary information, but I didn't see it or I didn't pick up on it.
My question, is that number normal? Is that about what we see every year?
Did you get that, Lewis?
How does that compare year to year?
Yes, sir.
Let me see if I pull that out. And okay, I assumed 440. Let's see, 440 million. I'm sorry, 440,000 from revaluations and $500,000 in new values for a total of 94. $940,000, and you ended up with a total of $1.4 million, I believe it was, so far. So that was, pretty close to the relationship that I had between new values. Now, historically, your new growth your revaluations has outstripped your new growth by about a 2 to 1 to 3 3-to-1 ratio. And this year, it's actually pretty close to a 1-to-1 ratio. I don't know if that answers your question, but I will see if I can get more specific and provide that to Kim to pass on to all of you.
That's good. Thanks, Lewis.
We don't get the detail
Mhm.
like we do when we get our certified value, but I will say that the revaluation portion is lower. I mean, we had so many years of double-digit increases in revaluation that it's bound to stop at some point. And it's really actually higher than it appears because we're absorbing that about $57 million correction, if you will, that, the cases that were before arbitration that didn't hit us until after the roll was certified. So that makes an impact on the revaluation. It's existing property. So we may have many other properties that went up, but those two that now have an exemption that wasn't accounted for before has brought some of that down. Does that make sense?
No, that helps, yeah. Any other questions for Lewis, or can we cut Lewis loose? Anything else?
I do have a question for Kim.
Yeah.
So these exemptions that have come about, have they been relatively surprise exemptions, or have they been used in the past by these property owners? What kind of look around the corner might we have in the next budget year for these kinds of large exemptions?
This is something, like I said, that happens very rarely. I think 9 out of 10 years it goes the other way. There's one business specifically that, let's see, about 14 million of it was for goods in transit. And so they disputed either the value or the percentage at which the exemption was applied, and they won. They made their case, and the ARB granted them a bigger exemption. And then I'm still in discussions with TAD on the other one. I've asked them, surely as when you certify, they legally need to certify at 90%. That's countywide. That's not just for the city of Saginaw. In the past, they've always certified at 95%, but they probably won't make that this year because of the time frame that I talked about before, with everything slid back 15 days. All I can do is say, please, this is a big amount for the size of our city, and normally they look at the bigger ones first, but for some reason, these two, we just had bad luck this year. We don't have a lot of, we have absolutely no say in how TAD goes about their business.
Yeah, they picked the number. We live with the number. That's for sure. Okay. I was just curious about those exemptions, if they were like COVID related or if they were unique. They were just simply where the product was in the world when the time it was claimed. Okay. Thank you, Kim.
Any other questions for Lewis? Are we done with Mr. McLean? I think we're done. Thank you, Lewis.
Hey, Lewis, we're going to let you go. We're done with you for tonight. I appreciate your time, sir, very much.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And talk to you later.
Thank you. Bye. All right, so are there other budget updates we're going to discuss? Or is that everything?
No, just one, Mayor, and Melanie is going to join us, Vicki Weldon. So we want to talk about the Aquatic Center, just give you an update where we're at right now. So,
come on down, ladies.
I've got Vicki here. She's been helping with the aquatic side, trying to get everything up and going as far as what we can do and what we can't do. So I'll let Vicki talk.
Hello, Vicki. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? I'm smiling just in case you can't see. Thank you. Priority number 1 is to make this a safe year like we always have, because according to statistics, A pool our size should have already had a drowning death. So every year that we're open, and we open and close safely, that's the priority. With that, the guards are number one priority. We need 30 lifeguards certified to open up the pool. Right now, I have 12 certified guards. I have 10 that are interested in coming back that are not certified. I have a few more that I've left messages with, but to get the certification, those classes have been canceled since the pandemic because of social distancing. So that knocked out TCC Northwest, TCC Northeast, YMCA, American Red Cross, Ellis, everyone. The only classes I could find is a place out in California, and they will fly in an instructor if we have a place to do it, but she flies in from Florida. That's how desperate they are to find, for these companies. So if we get all the lifeguards, we still need repairs on the pool. Zero grade entry needs to be addressed, repainted. The inspections are not done by the health department. The signage, supplies are not ordered, so everything was just stopped. We were doing very well with Melanie's idea of a job fair. We felt really good in March. We had the 2 job fairs, but that's where it ended. So, if you'd like to open the pool, we got a mountain to climb.
What do you think our options are? What do you think our chance of success for all this, and can we make this work, or?
The lifeguards are number one priority. I don't think that we can get enough lifeguards. We need, for one shift, 12 lifeguards.
Really?
And there's 2 shifts a day. We can't reduce the number of lifeguards that are on a shift because then we're reducing what has worked safety-wise. And if we put more strain on them, more hours, then their efficiency. So we need 30 lifeguards. And like right now, if we add up all of our numbers, we're not even at 30.
But even if you have reduced people coming in to swim, you still have to have that many lifeguards per session?
Yes, because all the water needs to be watched, even if they're not supposed to be in the deep end, and we put the little, the lane across. That doesn't mean that if that water's not being watched and someone fell in, then we're responsible for that. So all water needs to be watched.
Mayor?
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
As you know, my husband is a scuba instructor, and he works with another instructor who has recently purchased a house that he uses to train scuba students. I know you'd said something about a pool 7 foot deep for training. We're trying to talk with Chief right now to see if we can't negotiate something with him, just high level, to be able to use his pool for training if you can get the right amount of people that are interested in getting certified.
If we do that, this company that will come out to certify the lifeguards, they will require a COVID release, and if the people are under 18, they will require a parent signature. And just one of the things to look at is that this instructor has been all over the country flying. So as a parent, I don't know that all parents would sign off on this COVID release. So that's just one aspect, because we need everybody that we've counted and a couple more.
I know that as instructors, they're also requiring their students to sign COVID releases as well, whether it's at the pool or at the lake.
Yeah, it's just part of life now.
It is. And what age do they have to have their parents again?
18 and under. Under 18.
How much does the pool usually make every year?
I don't have that number.
Kim, do you have any idea?
About 130,000. You're about break even. We make, depending on the weather, obviously, but it's about break even. Revenues are about 132,000. Expenses were usually about 136,000. So we don't make money. If we open and we have to do it at a lower capacity, you're going to definitely lose.
What do you think, council? Do we want to support the pool this summer? Do we want to work toward this? What would we like to do? What's the council's pleasure on this?
Well, how much do we lose if we don't open compared to opening?
Yeah, I mean, we never planned for the pool to really be a huge moneymaker. It's a service that we're providing for the taxpayers.
So I have a question. So if you have 12 lifeguards and you could do one session, what is a session? Is it 4 hours? Is it 6 hours? What is it?
It would be 4.5 hour shift, maybe 5. The problem with that is that if we hire these lifeguards and we don't give them enough hours, then they're going to get a second job, and then they're not going to show up. I mean, that's been...
So most of the lifeguards work like 5 or 6 hours a day, times 5?
Yeah.
So what keeps us from partnering with another city to where we're open one day, they're open the next, and the lifeguards are working full-time, but in our city one day and in their city the next?
It's a very good proposition. I have not thought of that.
I've talked to Gage several times about this because that's what kids look forward to. And y'all already cut down the recreation center, so there's still kids out there that's not going to have anything to do in Saginaw. And so I think that we need to consider something. I mean, it's your call.
Can we do it safely, though?
We just did like one session a day.
I mean, could we consider as different variation from what Patrick said, we're open 3 days a week, 4 days a week? I don't know.
You're still reducing the amount of money that those lifeguards can earn.
All right, I understand.
And that's where, if they don't show up on a shift, if they call in, then we're stuck. Do we run the pool with less guards and take a chance on something happening because 3 guards didn't show up? I mean, I'm working with teenagers here as well.
No, yeah.
We can guarantee a salary. I mean, we'd take a loss with a guaranteed salary where they're making a set amount of money a week, and we just gamble on the revenue at that point. But I would say first layer of defense is see if we can partner with somebody and swap hours. Second layer,
Yeah, we can check on
Another city close that we might could do that with?
maybe White Settlement.
They're closed their whole splash days. It's closed for the season.
Would they entertain opening it if they know Saginaw will help offset cost?
What about Lake Worth? Does Lake Worth have a pool?
I was going to mention as well, the governor's order that limits the occupancy expires tomorrow at midnight. So, yes. So, it's dependent on whether a new order is issued, and, he does his press conference, and then you find out on the spot. So that's not to say that there won't be new limitations instituted, but GA 23 is the current occupancy limitation order, and it expires at midnight tomorrow.
Well, we'll know more. We'll see what happens.
Well, maybe if you could call around and see if there's a city close to us. I'm just thinking about the kids. I'm sorry, I'm a kids person.
I know First and Bedford are closed too, but yeah, see, I don't know about her.
Because we don't have anything else they can do. I mean, the playground's down, they can't do very much. So if they don't go to summer camp, then y'all are still at what, 50% there?
50% there.
How many are y'all going to enroll this summer?
For the camp, 50 children.
50?
50.
How many days in the year is the pool operating? Is it 100 days? 120. So that's a $1,100 a day in cost at the 136. And what, 80% of that is labor? So
I think that's
probably 90% of that is labor. So about $1,000 a day guarantees the lifeguard count. I mean, it would be nice to cut that back to $500 a day, but I've got to tell you, I think if we can make it happen, I'd like to see it happen, and safely. I'd like to see it happen safely. In addition to lifeguards, you'd have to have somebody monitoring body temperature, anybody demonstrating symptoms. This is, whatever that weird sickness is that you get when you swim in the pool after somebody's, used the bathroom in it. That's one thing, but now you've got this whole layer of COVID, so you'd have to have somebody out there with a temperature gun checking folks and just making people feel safe. So that's an additional cost that would be on top of this $1,100 a day. I'm just thinking, in my opinion, that pool is probably the biggest community service that our city gives to these kids in the community annually. It's probably the biggest in terms of what taxpayers get in return for their investment.
Agree. I'd also like to see a senior citizen day, maybe one day a week, find out what's a slow day. A lot of senior citizens do water aerobics. They like to do lap swimming, and TCC is closed, so they don't have that option anymore available to them through the senior education program through the campus. And I don't see what it would hurt to allow the seniors to come in, or maybe just open in the morning and let them have their time.
Well, right now, we're not going to be able to do the swim lessons that we've done. That company's not going to be doing, and so water aerobics and swim lessons are out.
But there's a lady over at Tarrant County College that teaches there. She might be willing just to have a playtime rather than have an actual lesson.
Right, that could expand the hours, though, is what I was going to say, if we don't have those conflicts.
So it's just something that I'd like to consider to help the seniors, because they don't like swimming in the pool with all the kids there, because they get, the kids get in front of them.
They're also a high-risk group, too, so your likelihood of having a large turnout of senior citizens would be pretty small right now until hospitalization rates decline significantly.
But I also know that several of them that I talked to are tired of sitting at home.
Yeah.
So let's say we want to move forward. What's our chance that we're going to get enough lifeguards, get these lifeguards even trained? I mean, that's almost our first number one stumbling block. And what do you think, Vicki? Do we have a shot at this? And if so, what would be the time frame?
I think on our own, we don't have a shot on getting these lifeguards. And what the applications that I have, the 12 certified, the 10 that are still interested, that's 22.
Mm-hmm.
We would need 30 to run this. So the next option is to see if there is a way to partner. But on our own, I just don't think that we can safely open it.
Okay.
With what we've got now.
Well, let's see if there's another city be willing to. We open, whatever percentage of the time. Let's see what we can do.
Okay.
I know North Richland Hills is open. I talked to Oscar. They're doing something with their pools. All right, let's see what we can do. I think council's direction is yes, we want to open if at all possible. I think we're leaving it to you to figure it out. I know it's a big ask. I'm sorry, but it's
That's okay.
It's something we want to do if possible. Let's see what we can work to do.
We'll explore these and, safety priority number one.
Yeah, absolutely. No.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vicki. Thank you, Melanie.
Can we get an update before, or if possible before, the next council meeting or something?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll send a communication to the council, and we'll put something out on the website as well. Just let people know.
Anything else on item number 8? All right, then at 7:19, we were in executive session pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.071 to discuss Willow Creek Station Playground Project. We will return to adjourn. Or is everybody else?
So I guess Project Green Plan doesn't have anything to do with that, it's just us now?
We own it, yeah.
I'll make a motion.
All right, we got 1, 2, 3, 4. At 8:08, I call this session of City Council back to order. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion, we adjourn, Mayor.
Charlie, make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Valerie, second. All those in favor, raise your right hand.
Got it up.
At 8:08, we're adjourned. Oh, where's Janice? I think we'll be mad at me.
I know, but she's gonna say, here you go again.
So Charlie and Valerie.
Positively, yeah.
Everybody turn.